Hello, my friends. It's Nick. It's the ASMR nerd. And it's 2025, y'all. And we have the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion for a second time before we have the Elder Scrolls 6. And you know what? I'm not even mad about it. I ain't even mad. That's right, this past week, Bethesda and their partner Virtuous Studios shadow dropped Oblivion Remastered, and it is pretty awesome. It is pretty excellent. I am really enjoying it so far. But I've had a lot of requests from folks to share my thoughts on what I'm liking or maybe not liking so much, or how I feel about Oblivion Remastered. And so I thought we would do a classic, soft-spoken, relaxing gaming ramble here today about Oblivion Remastered. And I do want to assure you right at the top here, before we go any further, that I will be putting out a Wandering in Oblivion Remastered video very soon. So that's something you can look forward to. I've had a lot of requests for that as well, but I wanted to spend a bit more time on it, getting it just the way I want it. So in the meantime, I thought we would do a ramble video like this. This game certainly is just begging for a wandering series, an ASMR relaxing wandering series, because it is beautiful. They have done a gorgeous job of this remaster. You know what else is beautiful? It's this shirt that I'm wearing right here, this relaxed button up from this video's sponsor, Into the AM. It's springtime, the days are sunny and warm. It's time to start looking towards your warmer weather wardrobe. And Into the AM has you covered with brand new releases of their relaxed button-ups. They've got beautiful new patterns and designs for you to check out. And you know what? These things are fantastic. I've been wearing the relaxed button-ups for quite some time now. They are the perfect spring and summer wear when you want something that's super comfortable, premium fabric, nice and light, breathable. It's got a bit of stretch to it. It's really nicely fitted, but they're classy as heck as well. You can dress them up, wear them out. You can dress them down, wear them at home. You can even wear it to the office if you've got a fun office that appreciates this sort of thing. But they've got some lovely new designs in there for you to check out. So make sure you click through down below at that link at the top of the video description. There you will find all kinds of amazing, elevated, everyday apparel from Into the AM, including their relaxed button-ups, but all kinds of other beautiful, comfortable, easy to care for clothes as well. And when you use that link, you will be saving yourself 10% of your entire order, whether it's their relaxed button-ups, whether it's their graphic tees, whether it's their new denim line, whatever you're looking for, 10% of your entire order. And you will be supporting this channel when you do so. So make sure you check out what Into the AM's got with their brand new designs for their relaxed button-ups and all their other awesome stuff using that link down below at the top of the video description. Big thanks to Into the AM for sponsoring today's video. And y'all can enjoy this charcoal pineapple design through the duration of today's video. And I'm going to enjoy wearing it because, like I said, super comfy. But with that said, let's talk about Oblivion Remastered. So, some of you might know, if you've been hanging around for a while here, that Oblivion is probably my least favorite of the, I was going to say modern Elder Scrolls games. That's not quite right. Elder Scrolls main series, Elder Scrolls games from the last 25 years, let's say. Which is to say, I like Morrowind and Skyrim more than Oblivion. But that is not to say that I don't like Oblivion. In fact, I love Oblivion. I have incredibly fond memories, super strong nostalgia of playing Oblivion back in the day on my very first gaming PC that I ever bought. Gosh, what was the hardware in that thing? I think it was an Athlon 3800 plus, Athlon XP 3800 plus, no, Athlon 64 3800 plus, and a Radeon X800 XL was the GPU I was playing with at the time. That's neither here nor there, really. But the point is, I played the crap out of Oblivion when it launched back in 2006. And so I have very fond memories. I do enjoy Oblivion very much. And as a matter of fact, if you saw my top 10 most anticipated games of the year video back in January of this year, you might have seen that the fan-made Oblivion remaster, reimagining of sorts, called Skyblivion, which recreates the entirety of Oblivion in the Skyrim engine and is supposed to be releasing later this year, is one of my most anticipated gaming things of the year. Bar none, really. So, needless to say, when Oblivion Remastered was shadow dropped, it's like announced and released on the same day this past week, I was so hype. And first of all, the audacity of dropping the game that way is immense. And I think it was the right choice, because you don't see that so often where a game just comes out of thin air. And it really does build a very rapid amount of hype. And I think that has worked to their advantage with this release. And I should say, it was heavily rumored that there was an Oblivion remaster, an official Oblivion remaster in the works, and that its release was imminent. So this wasn't a complete surprise. And of course, I had been following those rumors very closely. So I think anyone who was kind of tuned in to the gaming space, specifically maybe the Elder Scrolls gaming space, kind of knew that this was going to happen. But nevertheless, I was skeptical up until the last moment that they were actually going to do it. Because yeah, it's really uncommon these days that there's no build-up or pre-release information at all for a game. So props to Bethesda and Virtuous and Microsoft, whoever made the choice, the decision to shadow drop this thing. I think that was the right choice, because yeah, it did generate a lot of hype really quick, and I think it's just a fun way to do it. So bam, game drops, people are coming on and checking it out. It drops on Game Pass right away as well, which is where I've been playing it. So that's, Game Pass continues to be pretty unbelievable value, in my opinion. And my first impressions were honestly firing that thing up and hearing that main menu music. It was like, it sent chills down my spine. It gave me goosebumps, as did seeing the trailer on that day of launch. I was, of course, working. It was a Tuesday that they dropped it, and so I couldn't play it right away because it dropped in the morning. So I had to go through my full work day, just like, oh, I want to play this now. But I did watch the trailer on my lunch break, and yeah, just goosebumps. Like, it's just like, between the music and seeing all these remastered visuals, it was so good. It was so hype. So coming into that menu, hearing that music, I was so amped up. And then you get into the game, and it goes through all the, the intro with Cyrodiil Septim, Emperor Cyrodiil Septim, voiced by Patrick Stewart, giving his monologue about, his life, and sort of setting the stage for the story, which has, of course, been remastered with the new graphics engine. The remaster is, of course, running on Unreal Engine 5, running over top of or containing large chunks of the original game's code base, is my understanding. And so they've created this kind of Frankenstein game, Franken game, containing a lot of the original code base and game logic and, data structures and all that kind of thing, while grafting on the presentation afforded by Unreal Engine 5, which is, despite its challenges that it can face in terms of performance and optimization, which we'll talk about in a little bit, it is still a gorgeous, very cinematic graphics engine. And it has done a spectacular job here. And so, when you see the remastered Cyrodiil Septim looking incredibly craggy, but so much more lifelike than the potato-faced NPCs of the original game, it's remarkable. It's really remarkable. And that feeling carries all the way through, because it's just, you're seeing these, at least for me, these incredibly, familiar places and scenes. Like, you step out of the sewers for the first time, and it's that classic scene with the Iliad ruins, Filverin, across the water, and the mountains, the lush green hills rolling up into the high Gerals. And it's just like, it's kind of euphoric. Like, I don't know, just thinking about it, it's very emotional for me, because again, I've spent so much time in Oblivion over the years, and it feels like coming home in a way. And it also feels like part of it is knowing that other people love this game so much that they put so much time and effort and love into recreating this thing that I love in such a beautiful and faithful and just striking kind of way. There's something really powerful about that, and of course, it's not just that opening scene. It's everywhere you go in the game. When you first step into the market district, in the Imperial City, and it's that classic view, you know, with the tower in the distance and the flagstones, you know, the cobbles. And anyway, I can just keep going on, and this is why I cannot wait to get this Wandering and Oblivion Remastered out for you guys. But the point is, it's really, really gorgeous, and it really does justice, I think, to the place that Bethesda built in Oblivion. And that's a recurring theme for me with the Elder Scrolls games, is they feel less like a game and more like a place, somewhere that you're, you know, nostalgic for, somewhere that you are excited to return to. And that is certainly the case with Oblivion Remastered. And again, it's not without its flaws. We'll talk about some of those issues in a little bit, but my first impressions have been so positive. And they've retained a lot of the character and the quirks of Oblivion as well, for better and for worse, you know. Like, one thing about Oblivion that is kind of infamous is that the characters were butt ugly. They were really, really ugly. It was just a limitation of the technology at the time. But they all had these very kind of blobby, potato-y looking faces, lacking defined features. Again, at the time, they looked all right, but they did not age particularly well. Even at the time, some of them were pretty gosh darn ago. But they have updated the character faces to have much more defined features and, you know, expressive, facial movements and expressions and whatnot. But at the same time, they didn't make them beautiful. Like, they didn't yassify all the characters. They still kind of look like low fantasy, ugly peasants. Well, I guess it's high fantasy, really. But I guess what I'm saying is they retained the spirit of the original NPCs in a way that I really, really appreciate. And when you first get into the character creation, which takes place in the prison in the Imperial City, and your character's standing there in front of you, you can, you know, hit the randomize character button to just totally randomize your features. And I remember that always creating the most goofy, upsetting looking characters in the original Oblivion. And holy cow, did they nail that here as well. Almost to the point of frustration, because I spent a long time clicking that randomize character button until I found like a starting kind of template that I could work from that wasn't just like grotesque or like, yeah. And as a matter of fact, I found one finally that I kind of liked, and I started customizing from there. And then somewhere along the line, I switched accidentally from body type 1 to body type 2, and it completely wiped out all of my customizations up to that point. So, a word of warning: if you have not played the game yet, if you've not created your character, be warned. Switching your body type or switching your race will immediately destroy any customizations you've made without warning. It won't give you a warning. So yeah, be really careful about that. I lost like 20 minutes of tweaking and customizing my character. Anyway, I eventually did manage to get another character that I thought looks okay. But anyway, I was both pleased and frustrated that the characters look pretty much just as ugly as they always have. And so I'm still fairly early on. I'm still spending my time kind of around the Imperial City, just exploring around that sort of first, kind of area. I haven't even gone to Coral yet, if that means anything to you, if you've played the game. But that's how I like to play Elder Scrolls games. I'm rarely in a hurry to follow the main quest. I just like to just pick a direction and go and, find what you find. And it's been long enough since I played Oblivion that a lot of it feels very familiar to me, of course, but there's a lot of stuff a little off the beaten path that I don't remember so well, or that maybe I never experienced in my first playthrough, just because Oblivion's a big game, and that's how Elder Scrolls games are. You can come back to them again and again, and find new things. At least that's been my experience. But it is a very faithful remaster, which is to say, it leaves most things fairly intact. And the changes that it does make are pretty subtle, aside from the visuals. I mean, the visual overhaul is striking and beautiful, although, again, retains the spirit of the original art direction fairly well. It is a little bit more sepia toned, I would say, whereas the original was a bit more vivid, high fantasy kind of look. But you can always fix that with mods, throw a reshade on there or whatever. And yes, there are already many mods for Oblivion Remastered, probably over 100 already on the Nexus if you're to look. But graphics aside, they did update some pretty core things, like the leveling system, for example, which is perhaps one of the most maligned parts of the original game. The original Oblivion had a pretty goofy leveling system where, in the Elder Scrolls games, you level up by using your skills. The more you use a particular skill, that levels up. And then in Oblivion, your skills are split into major and minor skills. And every time you leveled up a major skill, it would give you progress towards leveling up your character level. You need to level up 10 major skills to level up your character level. And then when you did, you got to put points into your attributes, like your base stats, but different attributes would get a certain bonus to them on the level up, depending on the major skills you leveled, because each major skill is associated with an attribute. And so, like, let's say you leveled up a lot of major skills associated with strength. Well, then when your character levels up, you had like a +5 bonus to strength, like when you put a point into that. But maybe you didn't want to put a point into strength. Maybe you wanted to put it into intelligence. But maybe it just so happened that the major skills you leveled up were not intelligence-based in that level. And therefore, if you put a point into intelligence, you'd only get 1 point into it instead of 5, which would, waste a lot of potential character strength and character growth. And it just felt bad. It felt very rigid, and it felt very kind of confusing, actually, because it was not very clear about how that all came to happen, and so it was kind of easy to accidentally like kneecap your character, like hobble your character by not min-maxing your skill leveling so that you could min-max attribute leveling. Anyway, it was bad is the point. But they have revised the leveling system in Oblivion Remastered. I'm happy to say I think it's a lot better, and it gives you a lot more flexibility, and it ensures that you're not so likely to end up really underpowered, because instead of the major skills you level dictating what attributes get the bonuses when your character level goes up, now you can just put those points into any 3 attributes, and you can choose how to distribute, I think, like 12 points basically, in any way you want. So the point being, it's a lot more flexible. It's less likely you're going to wreck your character. You don't have to fret so much over min-maxing your skill leveling, which is great. I'm really, really a fan of that change. Another maligned aspect of the original game was that the world essentially leveled with you. It was all level scaled to your character's level. And so it would often feel like, you didn't have that same sense of progression necessarily, because you got stronger, but the world got stronger as well. So your relative power level always kind of stayed the same. And that's good in some ways, because it means the challenge is always fairly consistent, unless you accidentally kind of broke your character, got yourself really underpowered. But it also kind of robs you of that feeling of growth in some ways. Anyway, I'm not quite sure whether that is implemented in the same way in Oblivion Remastered. I haven't leveled up enough to really get a sense of that. There definitely is some level scaling going on, that much I can tell. But I'm not sure if it's the full-on level scaling like from the original game, or if it's kind of a scaled back version. I'm kind of hoping it's maybe a more scaled back version, but I'm really not sure. Anyway, but I will see, I guess, as I play more. But it feels good so far. And I will say the combat has been kept pretty much exactly the same, but it somehow feels better to me. Like it just, I think it's maybe because they've added new animations and new sound that make the combat feel a bit more kinetic than it did. It's still not amazing. Like you're still kind of just waving your sword around out there, but it does feel like there's a bit more of a sense of contact when you hit, and it just does feel a little bit more visceral in a way that's appealing. It's never going to be super deep combat. It's never going to be like Souls-like combat or anything. That's just not what Oblivion or any Elder Scrolls game is, unless you use a lot of mods. But I think the relatively subtle changes they made to the combat presentation do make it feel a bit punchier and a bit more engaging. So I'm happy to see that. I wrote down a few things here. I'm just kind of going through my list of stuff I've noticed. Oh yeah, some new voice lines. They've replaced some voices, because this was another thing that Oblivion's kind of infamous for, that it's caught flack for over the years, is that the pool of voice actors was very small for Oblivion, where like essentially every member of a given race had the exact same voice actor, pretty much bar none, it seemed, or bar, like there were a few exceptions, but by and large, you heard the same voices again and again and again. And you know what? They weren't bad voices. Like, they were good voice actors doing a good job hamming it up. And many of them are very iconic. Like, of course, Wes Johnson's Imperial Guard voice. Stop, you violated the law. An absolute classic. But all of them really are classic. What they have done is gone back and re-recorded lines to add more voice diversity into the world, which at first I wasn't sure about. Like, I went into the Imperial City Market District and I went into the copious coin purse and I spoke to Thorinir there, who is always my early game merchant that I might go to. Early game merchant. He's my guy. And a different voice came out of his mouth. And I'm like, whoa, hold on now. What are you doing to my boy Thorinir? But the more I listen to it, the more I think I'm okay with that change. The original voice acting is iconic, of course, but overall, I think the increased voice diversity is a net benefit. Will I miss the original Thorinir voice? Yes, I do. But I think the new voice is doing a pretty good job. And overall, I think having that increased pool of voice actors is is a boon to the game and helps, avoid that situation where hearing the same voice out of everyone's mouth really pulls you out of the immersion. So, new voice lines. Shocking, perhaps controversial. I don't know, but I think it's probably for the best. But not everything is quite so rosy. And it seems like the biggest issue that people are facing, well, a couple. One is bugs. It would not be a Bethesda game without bugs. And I've not run into any showstoppers yet, but I've definitely encountered my fair share of jank. From like weird stuff happening with, like, I've noticed in the inventory, even if you have like weapons equipped, it'll show your character in the inventory with those weapons sometimes, but other times not. It'll just show them with their fists up, despite the fact that they have weapons equipped. That's kind of funny. I've definitely seen jankiness with NPCs where, like, there's a bunch of them congregating all in one spot, kind of clumped together, like in the Imperial City Market District, and they should be talking, but they're not. They're just all standing there, clumped together, staring at each other. And then if you, like, exit the cell and re-enter it, suddenly they're all talking and moving about. These kinds of things. I had an instance where I had a sword and shield equipped, and then I equipped a bow, and I went to go take a shot with the bow, but I still had the shield on my arm, and it was blocking my view with the bow, even though when I equipped the bow, it should have unequipped the shield. Stuff like that. I'm sure some of these bugs are actual holdovers from the original code base, because again, underneath the new coat of paint and all the Unreal Engine, prettiness, it is still running a lot of the same original code. So some of this stuff could be coming over from that. Of course, other things could be newly introduced just as part of this remaster. It's hard to say. I'm sure, though, that the list of bugs is extensive so far. I'm sure we'll no doubt continue to grow as players find new and exciting ways to break things. So I really hope that Bethesda and Virtuous are committed to patching the heck out of this thing, getting it into a really good polished spot. It's kind of funny in that clearly they were under no external pressure to get this game out. Maybe there's been internal pressure to get the remaster out. I believe the initial leak came out of some leaked documents from back in, I think, 2022, or 2023 maybe, around the time that Microsoft was moving to acquire Activision Blizzard, and I think it was part of all that. And there was a big document leak, and on the roadmap was this Oblivion Remastered, which I think at the time in 2023 actually said that the Oblivion Remaster was supposed to come out in 2022, if you can believe it. Maybe that was just some placeholder or something, but suffice to say, clearly Virtuos has been working on this for a long time. And again, there was no promised release date that they were trying to make, at least from an external perspective. So it's a bit surprising that it released in what is a fairly janky kind of state. Again, not unplayably janky, and Elder Scrolls fans, if nothing else, do have a very high tolerance for jank. So in some ways, it feels right. It feels right for there to be a certain amount of goofiness going on. And so I can't be too mad about it. Although maybe if I ran into some real game-breaking showstopper bugs, I'd be a little more mad about it. But so far, it's all been pretty harmless stuff. But maybe there were internal pressures. Maybe they were being told, like, hey, we've been putting a lot of time and, developer hours and money into this. We really need to get it out. Just get it out the door. Who's to say? I don't know. But anyway, but a perhaps more unfortunate side effect of this is that the game is really not very well optimized in terms of performance. It seems like CPU performance is the real culprit here. I watched a Digital Foundry video today pointing out that there's just terrible traversal stutter pretty much no matter what kind of system you have. Even if you have the fastest SSD and the fastest CPU, you're going to get traversal stutter and really uneven frame pacing. Some of this might be inherent to, again, the original code base and the way it loads content into cells and unloads content. I would not be surprised at all, actually, if a lot of it is attributable to that. Some of it might be Unreal Engine 5 stuff, adding its own layer of performance woes on top. Certainly, traversal stutter has been a recurring problem in UE5 games. Whatever the case, it is unfortunate that pretty much no matter how powerful your system is, you're going to have a somewhat unsmooth experience. All that being said, I have not had enough of a stuttery experience for it to really impact my enjoyment of the game. Different people are going to be sensitive to that sort of performance thing to different degrees. Some people are really sensitive to traversal stutter. For me, it's not a huge deal, but it is unfortunate, and my understanding is that on sort of lower or even mid-range hardware, the game just doesn't run very well at all, kind of no matter what you do with the graphics. And that is unfortunate. And I really do hope that they can iron out those performance issues, squeeze out some better performance from the game. I just hope that they support it well, and they continue to work on it. An unfortunate thing, like they did put out a first patch this past Friday, which interestingly only seems to have released to the Game Pass version of the game, not the Steam version. But the Game Pass version, they put out a patch which I hoped would improve some performance issues, but instead it seemed to create a lot more. As a matter of fact, it completely removed the DLSS upscaling and frame generation options from the menu. And then you can do like an INI tweak to try and restore them. I was only ever able to get frame gen working again, but not DLSS super resolution. But it also removes the FSR and XeSS upscaling options. And of course, that results in even worse performance for people playing on the Game Pass version. So there's some technical issues, some technical challenges. I really hope they fix what they broke with the patch very soon. And overall, I hope they are committed to squashing bugs and improving performance across the board. Maybe there's only so much they can do. Like I said, maybe their hands are somewhat tied by using that original code base. I don't know. But I do hope they can smooth things over at least a bit. But again, I will say, in some way, it's weirdly nostalgic when the game runs like crap, because back in the day, running this game on my X800XL, my Radeon X800XL, and my old Athlon 64 3800 plus, the game kind of ran like crap. And it was really pushing the graphics hardware of the time, the CPUs of the time. And I remember, cranking the graphics up to the max, throwing some extra anti-aliasing on through the control panel and playing that game at like, I don't know, probably 20 FPS or something. And I was like, perfect. This is fine. And so, in some ways, it's a little nostalgic that the game has performance issues to this day. Obviously not preferable, but nostalgic in a funny kind of way. So that's been my experience with the game so far. Like I said, I'm not that far in. I had a very busy work week, and so I really only got to play bits and pieces up until last night. I finally got to really sit down and enjoy a decent session. But man, Oblivion's a big game. There's a lot to see and do, and I'm gonna let y'all in on a little secret. But I never finished Oblivion back in the day. Not to my recollection anyway, I don't think I ever finished the main quest of the game. I spent probably hundreds of hours wandering Cyrodiil, but to the best of my recollection, I do not think I ever finished the main quest. So, and then of course on top of that, we've got Shivering Isles, which is a spectacular expansion in its own right, and is included in Oblivion Remastered, of course, as well as all the DLCs like Knights of the Nine, and all the other smaller ones as well. Wizard's Tower, of course, all those classics. So there's a lot to bite into here. Easily hundreds of hours if you want to do it all. And I'm so hyped for that. Of course, they couldn't help but put out a cheeky deluxe edition with cosmetic items, including cosmetic horse armor. And those of you who are old like me might remember that Oblivion was, to the best of my knowledge, the first ever instance of paid cosmetic DLC in a game with its horse armor. I think they charged $5 for a suit of horse armor back in the day, and that was super controversial. And look what they have wrought. Look where we are now. Microtransaction hell. Obviously, if it hadn't been Oblivion, it would have been something else that did it first, but I believe it was the first to ever do that. And so, again, the audacity of them including paid horse armor DLC as an option in this release is both excellent and kind of the worst thing ever. But whatever. I think it's funny. Personally, I think I kind of appreciate that they leaned into the meme. But anyway, the last thing I was going to mention is just a couple thoughts on what this all means for Skyblivion, the community-made Oblivion remake that I mentioned earlier. And the good news is it seems to be quite positive. There was some concern that, oh, maybe Microsoft would come in and just kill Skyblivion when they released this because, they didn't want it competing or whatever, which would be a absolute tragedy and an unmitigated PR disaster because Skyblivion has been worked on for over a decade now by an incredibly dedicated group of very, very talented modders, and it's looking spectacular. Unfortunately, Microsoft seems to agree, or Bethesda, or whomever is making these decisions, because it sounds like they've been in touch with the Skyblivion team. They, in fact, gave them all free copies of Oblivion Remastered, and it sounds like both are going to coexist peacefully, which I'm very thankful for, because really, actually, what the Skyblivion team is doing goes above and beyond what the Oblivion Remaster does, in the sense that they are revisiting all of the caves and dungeons of the game to completely rework them into more interesting experiences, which I think is great because as much as I love the original game, a lot of those caves are very boring, very boring. They're just kind of identical corridors, lots of rocks, stalactites and stalagmites, not much else. And so there's a lot of room there for improvement. And I appreciate that we can have both now. We can have a very faithful remaster with only subtle tweaks and changes in Oblivion Remastered. And we can have a more radical, fanciful reimagining of Oblivion in Skyblivion. And that is, created and fostered by the community. That's a beautiful thing. And all I can say is Oblivion fans are going to be eating well this year. And I think that's spectacular. So overall, I'm unabashedly loving Skyblivion so far. Are there detractors out there? Of course. Do people have legitimate criticisms? Of course. Are there just people out there trolling because it's popular to hate on Bethesda and whatever? Of course. It's all of it at once, as usual. But me, I'm just loving it. I'm just having a fantastic time looking through the rose-tinted glasses, enjoying this updated view of an all-time classic. And I'm going to be playing the crap out of it for months to come, no doubt. And then I'm going to do the same when Skyblivion drops, which is just excellent. Just excellent that we have so much good content coming our way. So we might not have Elder Scrolls 6 yet. We might not have it for a few years yet. But we do have a pretty darn excellent remaster of Oblivion, and I am here for it. And I think that's where I'm going to leave off here. I was thinking this was maybe going to be a shorter video, but looks like I can never keep it short. I can only ramble. I've got too many words. But hopefully, friends, you found this, if not interesting, at the very least relaxing. Maybe it helped you drift off to sleep or focus on your work or whatever. Or maybe you too have some thoughts and feelings about Oblivion Remastered and were interested to hear what I had to say. If you would like to share your feelings, please, I'd love to hear from you down below. in the comments. I'm sure my thoughts will continue to evolve as I play more of it. And maybe you've experienced some stuff you feel strongly about one way or another. So feel free to share down below. All right, friends, thank you so much for joining me here today. Like I said, you will be getting a Wandering in Oblivion Remastered soon, let's say within the next week. And as it is such a beautiful remaster, I am certain there will be more episodes to come as well. I'm looking forward to exploring more of this beautiful recreation of Oblivion. So, thanks again for joining me, and I look very forward to having you back here next time. Farewell for now, my friends. A loving remaster of a classic game is, of course, always a welcome thing. But you know what never needs to be remastered? Our amazing supporters for this channel on Patreon and YouTube memberships, because they are perfect just the way they are. Yes, these amazing folks that you see listed here kindly support what I do, the content I create through my Patreon and my YouTube memberships, and I am deeply grateful, eternally grateful for their kindness and generosity. They support what I do here and help me keep creating the kind of content that I like to create the most, like this video that you just saw here. And hopefully that's the kind of content that you enjoy watching and listening to the most as well. And if you, dear viewer or listener, would like to join these individuals in supporting this channel, please consider checking out the links down below at the top of the video description. On both my Patreon and YouTube, you will find 3 different tiers in which you can support, and I'm sure you will find one that is right for you. At the mighty Fusro Da tier, our greatest heroes, those individuals get a special spoken shout out, a big spoken thank you in every single one of my videos. And you are about to hear their names read out to you right now. Starting with Ice Regan Haha, Joe, Bruce, Brucey B3D Buchner, Ragnar Ragnarsson, Alien Test Subject X59ZY, aka Captain Vanquisher, Jake Luffney, Odinson, and Drummer Brit. Once again, a big heartfelt thank you to all of the incredible supporters that you see listed here. Their support not only helps me financially, but also gives me a big confidence boost. It really does remind me that there's so many folks out there who appreciate what I do here, and that means a lot to me. So thank you once again so very much to this channel's amazing supporters.